Are you struggling to bridge the gap between your on-premises Windows servers and the power of Microsoft Azure? Mastering the hybrid environment is no longer optional. It's essential for the modern IT professional. In this video, we will cover AZ-801 Configuring Windows Server Hybrid Advanced Services Full Exam Prep. Master the AZ-801 Configuring Windows Server Hybrid Advanced Services exam with this detailed practice test. In this comprehensive guide, we are diving deep into the AZ-801 Configuring Windows Server Hybrid Advanced Services certification. We will cover high availability, security, migration, and monitoring across 30 expert-level practice questions. Make sure to grab a notebook, because these questions are designed to mirror the actual exam environment to help you pass on your first attempt. You need to implement a security solution that protects Windows Server virtual machines from firmware-level threats and ensures that only authorized operating systems with verified bootloaders can start. Which features should you enable? Option A. BitLocker Drive Encryption. Option B. Trusted Launch, Secure Boot and VTPM. Option C. Azure Disk Encryption. Option D. Microsoft Defender for Identity. The correct answer is B. Trusted Launch for Azure virtual machines allows administrators to enable Secure Boot and VTPM. Virtual Trusted Platform Module capabilities. Secure Boot protects against rootkits and boot-level malware by ensuring only signed operating systems and drivers can start. VTPM ensures the integrity of the boot chain by performing attestation, while BitLocker and Azure Disk Encryption protect data at rest. They do not prevent firmware-level tampering during the boot process itself. Microsoft Defender for Identity is focused on monitoring Active Directory traffic, not VM boot security. You are configuring a failover cluster across two different subnets. Multi-subnet cluster. Which properties should you configure to ensure the cluster resources remain online with the least amount of downtime during a failover between sites? Option A. Set the Register All Providers IP property to 1. Option B. Enable Storage Replica in synchronous mode. Option C. Configure a Cloud Witness. Option D. Increase the heartbeat timeout interval. The correct answer is A. In a multi-subnet failover cluster, the Register All Providers IP property, when set to 1, ensures that the network name resource registers all IP addresses associated with it in DNS. This allows client applications to attempt connections to all registered IPs simultaneously or sequentially. If the client is using a modern connection string, like multi-subnet failover equals true in SQL, it can connect much faster after a failover because it doesn't have to wait for DNS propagation or TTL expiration. Cloud Witness helps with quorum but doesn't specifically handle IP registration issues in multi-subnet scenarios. You are using Azure Site Recovery (Azure) to protect on-premises Hyper-V virtual machines. You need to ensure that when a failover occurs, the domain controllers in Azure start before the application servers. What should you create? Option A. A Traffic Manager profile. Option B. An Azure Automation Runbook. Option C. A Recovery Plan. Option D. An Azure Load Balancer rule. The correct answer is C. Azure Site Recovery plans are specifically designed to orchestrate the failover process. Within a recovery plan, you can create groups of virtual machines. Group 1, containing domain controllers, will start first. and Group 2, containing application servers, will start only after the VMs in Group 1 are verified as running. You can also add manual actions or scripts, Azure Automation runbooks, to these plans. But the core mechanism for sequencing the startup of VMs is the recovery plan itself. A Windows Server 2022 instance is experiencing performance degradation. You want to collect long-term performance data and analyze trends using Azure Monitor. What is the first component you must install on the server? Option A, Log Analytics Gateway. Option B, Azure Connected Machine Agent, Azure Arc. Option C, Azure Monitor Agent, AMA. Option D, Dependency Agent. The correct answer is C. The Azure Monitor Agent, AMA, is the modern agent used to collect data from the guest operating system of both Azure VMs and hybrid machines. It replaces the older Log Analytics Agent, MMA, while the Azure Connected Machine Agent, Azure Arc, is often used to manage the server. The specific component responsible for performance data collection and routing to a log analytics workspace is the Azure Monitor Agent. The Dependency Agent is specifically for VM insights, mapping connections, but AMA is the base requirement for standard performance counters. You need to prevent an IT administrator from accessing sensitive files on a Windows Server 2022 file server, even if they have local administrative privileges. Which technology provides this level of protection? Option A, File System Permissions, NTFS. Option B, Azure Information Protection. Option C, Shielded Virtual Machines. Option D, Just Enough Administration, JEA. The correct answer is B. Azure Information Protection, AIP, and its successor, Microsoft Purview Information Protection, use encryption and identity-based access control that stays with the file, even if an administrator has full access to the server's file system. They cannot open the file unless they have been explicitly granted permission in the AIP purview policy. NTFS permissions are easily bypassed by administrators who can take ownership. JEA limits what commands an admin can run but doesn't encrypt the files themselves. You are deploying a 4-node Azure Stack HCI cluster. You need to ensure that the cluster can survive the loss of 2 nodes simultaneously using the most space-efficient storage configuration. Which resiliency settings should you use? Option A, 2-way mirroring. Option B, 3-way mirroring. Option C, nested mirror accelerated parity. Option D, dual parity. The correct answer is B. To survive the simultaneous loss of 2 nodes in a standard 4-node cluster, 3-way mirroring is required. It keeps 3 copies of every slab of data, while dual parity, also known as erasure coding, also survives 2 failures and is more space efficient than mirroring. It requires a minimum of 4 nodes but is generally recommended for larger clusters. 7+ nodes in HCI for performance reasons. However, in the context of Windows Server HCI, 3-way mirroring is the standard answer for 2-node fault tolerance on a 4-node setup. Note: nested resiliency is specifically for 2-node clusters. You are planning to migrate a physical Windows server to Azure. You want to use the Azure Migrate Discovery and Assessment tool. Which file format is used to import server metadata for a bulk assessment if you don't want to install an appliance immediately? Option A, JSON. Option B, CSV. Option C, XML. Option D, VHD. The correct answer is B. Azure Migrate allows for a bulk upload using a CSV, separated values template. This is useful for performing a quick assessment of inventory without deploying the full Azure Migrate appliance in the initial discovery phase. You fill out the CSV with server names, cores, and memory data to get cost and readiness estimates. Which tools should you use to assess the security configuration of your on-premises Windows servers against Microsoft's recommended security baselines? Option A, Azure Advisor. Option B, Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit. Option C, Windows Update for Business. Option D, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. The correct answer is B. The Microsoft Security Compliance Toolkit contains the Policy Analyzer tool and security baselines. It allows administrators to download, analyze, and apply GPO-based security baselines to Windows servers to ensure they meet industry standards. Azure Advisor provides recommendations for Azure resources, not deep oxygen monosulfide level GPO analysis for on-premises servers. In a Windows Server failover cluster, what is the purpose of a cloud witness? Option A, to act as a backup domain controller. Option B, to provide an additional vote in the cluster quorum using Azure Blob Storage. Option C, to synchronize files between cluster nodes using Azure File Sync. Option D, to monitor the health of the cluster from the Azure portal. The correct answer is B. A cloud witness is a type of failover cluster quorum witness that uses Microsoft Azure Blob Storage to read/write a file that acts as an arbitration point. It is ideal for multi-site clusters because it doesn't require a third physical site for a file share witness and avoids the complexity of maintaining a separate VM in the cloud just for quorum. You are using Azure Monitor Insights to monitor a hybrid cluster. You need to view the process dependencies and network connections for a specific Windows Server node. Which agent is required for this specific map functionality? Option A, Azure Connected Machine Agent. Option B, Microsoft Monitoring Agent, Legacy. Option C, Dependency Agent. Option D, Azure Policy Guest Configuration Agent. The correct answer is C. While the Azure Monitor Agent, AMA, collects performance data and logs, the Dependency Agent is specifically required to enable the Map feature in VM Insights. It collects data about processes running on the server and their dependencies on other servers, including active network connections. Note that the Dependency Agent requires the AMA or MMA to be present to function. You want to implement just enough administration, JEA, on your Windows servers. What is the primary file type used to define which CMD lets and functions a user is allowed to run? Option A, Role Capability File, PSRC. Option B, Session Configuration File, PSSC. Option C, Group Policy Object, .pol. Option D, PowerShell Script, PS1. The correct answer is A. JEA uses two main configuration files. The Role Capability File, PSRC, defines what someone can do, which CMD lets, functions, or external commands are visible, The session configuration file, PSSC, defines who can connect to the endpoint and which roles they are assigned. Since the question asks for the file that defines the cmd-lets functions, the role capability file is the correct answer. You are configuring Hyper-V replica between two on-premises data centers. You want to ensure that if the primary site fails, the replica VMs start with a different IP address suitable for the secondary site's subnet. What should you configure? Option A, Azure Traffic Manager. Option B, Hyper-V Network Virtualization. Option C, Failover IP in the VM Network Adapter Settings. Option D, DHCP Relay Agent. The correct answer is C. Inside the Hyper-V Manager settings for a specific VM, under the Replication section and Network Configuration, you can specify an IPv4, IPv6 failover TCP IP address. This allows the VM to automatically inject a new IP address into the guest OS when it is failed over to the replica server, ensuring it matches the local subnet of the recovery site. You need to migrate a Windows Server 2012 R2 file server to Windows Server 2022 while maintaining all share permissions and minimizing downtime. Which tool is recommended by Microsoft? Option A, Azure File Sync. Option B, Storage Migration Service, SMS. Option C, Robocopy. Option D, Windows Server Backup. The correct answer is B. The Storage Migration Service, SMS, is a job-based orchestrator that allows you to inventory servers, transfer data, shares configurations to a new server, and then cut over the identity of the old server to the new one. This means the new server takes the name and IP of the old one, so users don't have to map new drives. It is significantly easier and more automated than using manual robocopy scripts. A company wants to detect when a user's account is being used in a pass the ticket attack against their on-premises Active Directory. Which service provides this specific detection capability? Option A, Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Option B, Microsoft Defender for Identity. Option C, Azure AD Password Protection. Option D, Azure Sentinel. The correct answer is B. Microsoft Defender for Identity, formerly Azure Advanced Threat Protection, monitors on-premises domain controllers. It parses network traffic and Windows events to detect advanced threats, including reconnaissance, lateral movement, and credential theft attacks like pass the hash and pass the ticket. Defender for Cloud is more focused on resource configuration and VM-level security. Which quorum mode is recommended for a cluster with an even number of nodes? Option A, Node Majority. Option B, Node and Disk Majority. Option C, No Majority, Disk Only. Option D, Dynamic Quorum Only. The correct answer is B. In a cluster with an even number of nodes, you need an extra vote to break a tie if the cluster splits in half. Adding a witness, disk witness or cloud witness, changes the quorum model to node and witness majority, ensuring an odd number of total votes. This is the best practice for maintaining cluster availability during failures in even node configurations. You need to automate the response to a specific event ID appearing in the Windows System Event Log. On a hybrid server, Which Azure service should you use to orchestrate the remediation script? Option A, Azure Functions. Option B, Azure Automation. Hybrid Runbook Worker. Option C, Azure Logic Apps. Option D, Event Grid. The correct answer is B. By using Azure Monitor alerts to detect the event ID and triggering an Azure Automation runbook, you can automate remediation. Because the server is hybrid, on-premises, you use a hybrid runbook worker to execute the script locally on the server or within the local network, bypassing the need for a public IP or inbound firewall ports for Azure to talk to the server. You are implementing Privileged Access Management (PAM) and want to use the Shadow Principles feature. What is a requirement for this implementation? Option A, a Windows Server 2016 or newer functional level Forest for the Bastion Forest. Option B, Azure AD Premium P2 licenses for all users. Option C, Active Directory Certificate Services. Option D, a SQL Server backend for the PAM database. The correct answer is A. Privileged Access Management (PAM) with Shadow Principles requires a separate Bastion Forest. This Bastion Forest must be at a functional level of at least Windows Server 2016 to support the Shadow Principle mechanism, which allows for time-bound membership in administrative groups in the production forest without modifying the production forest schema significantly. What is the primary benefit of using a scale-out file server (SOFS) over a standard file server for general use in a cluster? Option A, it supports NTFS permissions better. Option B, it provides active availability for application data like SQL or Hyper-V. Option C, it is faster for users accessing Office documents over SMB. Option D, it requires fewer IP addresses. The correct answer is B. Scale-out file server (SOFS) is designed for application data, Hyper-V VHDs or SQL databases. It allows all nodes in a cluster to host the same share simultaneously. Active. This provides zero downtime failover and increased bandwidth. It is not recommended for general use. User home folders, because it lacks some SMB features like metadata caching that are optimized for standard file access patterns. You are using Azure Site Recovery to replicate an on-premises Windows server. You want to perform a test failover to verify your disaster recovery plan. What is a key characteristic of a test failover? Option A, it shuts down the production server. Option B, it creates a copy of the VM in a non-production Azure Virtual Network. Option C, it stops replication from the primary site. Option D, it updates the DNS records of the production application. The correct answer is B. A test failover in Azure is non-disruptive. It creates a copy of the replicated VM in an isolated environment, usually a VNet that is not connected to the production VNet. Replication continues to run in the background, and the production server is not affected. This allows you to verify that the VM boots and the application starts without impacting real-time data protection. You are migrating a legacy application to a new Windows Server 2022 instance. You discover that the application uses a hard-coded IP address that cannot be changed. Which feature can help you migrate this server to Azure while keeping the IP? Option A, Azure Extended Network. Option B. Azure ExpressRoute. Option C. Azure Private Link. Option D. Azure VPN Gateway. The correct answer is A. Azure Extended Network. Part of Windows Server hybrid capabilities. Allows you to stretch an on-premises L2 subnet into Azure. This enables migrated virtual machines to keep their original on-premises IP addresses when they move to the cloud, which is critical for legacy applications with hard-coded IP dependencies. Which Windows Server role is required to implement device health attestation for protecting against low-level malware? Option A. Host Guardian Service. HGS. Option B. Network Policy Server. NPS. Option C. Active Directory Certificate Services. Option D. Web Application Proxy. The correct answer is A. The Host Guardian Service. HGS. Is used to provide attestation and key protection. Attestation ensures that a Hyper-V host is healthy, i.e., has secure boot enabled and has not been tampered with, before it is allowed to run a shielded VM. It is the core service for high-security hybrid virtualization. You have a cluster shared volume. CSV. You want to ensure that if a node loses direct connectivity to the storage array, it can still access the data via another node in the cluster. Which feature facilitates this? Option A. Storage replica. Option B. SMB multi-channel. Option C. CSV block level redirection. Option D. Storage spaces direct. The correct answer is C. Cluster shared volumes. CSV. Have a feature called I/O redirection. If a node loses its physical path to the disk, it can route its I/O requests over the cluster network to a node that still has connectivity. This is known as block-level redirection and ensures the VM stays online despite a local storage path failure. You want to use Azure Update Manager to manage patches for your on-premises servers. What is the primary advantage of Azure Update Manager over the older automation update management? Option A. It requires no agent or log analytics workspace. Option B. It supports Linux only. Option C. It is a native Azure resource with no dependency on Azure Automation. Option D. It only works for Azure VMs. The correct answer is C. The new Azure Update Manager, formerly Update Management Center, is a native Azure service that does not require an Azure Automation account or a log analytics workspace for its core operations. It provides a more streamlined, integrated experience in the Azure portal for both Azure and Arc-enabled hybrid servers. You need to restrict which applications can run on a Windows Server 2022 to only those that are digitally signed by the company's certificate. Which feature should you use? Option A. AppLocker. Option B. Windows Defender Application Control. WDAC. Option C. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Option D. Group Policy Software Installation. The correct answer is B. While AppLocker can do this, Windows Defender Application Control, WDAC, is the more modern and robust solution recommended by Microsoft. WDAC is enforced at the kernel level and offers better protection against administrative bypasses. Compared to AppLocker, WDAC is ideal for fixed-purpose servers to ensure total control over executable code. When configuring storage replica between two servers for disaster recovery, what is the primary requirement for the log drive? Option A. It must be formatted as FAT32. Option B. It should be on faster storage, like SSD, NVMe, than the data drive. Option C. It must be the same size as the data drive. Option D. It must be a network share. The correct answer is B. Storage replica performance is heavily dependent on the log drive. All write operations are first committed to the log. Therefore, Microsoft recommends that the log drive be placed on very fast, low-latency storage, like SSD or NVMe, to minimize the performance impact on the application performing the writes. Which tool should you use to migrate a SQL Server database from on-premises to an Azure SQL managed instance with minimal downtime? Option A. Azure Data Migration Service, DMS. Option B. SQL Server Management Studio, Export. Option C. Azure Backup. Option D. AZ-copy. The correct answer is A. The Azure Data Migration Service, DMS, is designed for large-scale migrations of databases. It supports online migrations which synchronize data continuously from the source to the target, allowing for a very short cutover window, which is ideal for production workloads. What is the function of the Azure Connected Machine Agent? Option A. To replicate VMs to Azure. Option B. To project an on-premises server as a resource into the Azure Resource Manager, Azure Arc. Option C. To act as a VPN gateway. Option D. To encrypt on-premises hard drives. The correct answer is B. The Azure Connected Machine Agent is the core component of Azure Arc-enabled servers. It allows you to manage your on-premises Windows and Linux machines as if they were native Azure resources, enabling features like Azure Policy, RBAC, and extensions for non-Azure VMs. You are implementing cluster-aware updating, CAU. You want to ensure that the updating process doesn't cause a service interruption for a highly available application. Which mode should you use? Option A. Remote updating mode. Option B. Self-updating mode. Option C. Manual updating. Option D. Semi-annual channel update. The correct answer is B. Self-updating mode involves configuring CAU as a clustered role. The cluster updates itself automatically by putting one node at a time into maintenance mode, moving the roles to other nodes, installing updates, restarting, and then moving to the next node. This ensures the application remains available throughout the update cycle. You want to collect specific Windows event logs, e.g., security logs, from 100 hybrid servers and store them in a central location for 2 years. Which Azure service is best suited for this? Option A. Azure Storage Account, Blob. Option B. Log Analytics Workspace. Option C. Azure Data Lake. Option D. Azure Backup Center. The correct answer is B. A Log Analytics Workspace, part of Azure Monitor, is the standard destination for log data. It allows for advanced querying, KQL, alerting, and visualization. You can configure data retention policies to keep the data for the required 2-year period, although costs will scale with the amount of data and retention time. You are configuring Azure Backup for an on-premises Windows server. You want to ensure that if a ransomware attacker deletes your cloud backups, they can still be recovered for 14 days. Which feature should you enable? Option A. Multi-user authorization. MUA. Option B. Soft delete. Option C. Immutable storage. Option D. Azure Resource Lock. The correct answer is B. Soft delete for Azure Backup provides a layer of protection against accidental or malicious deletion. When a backup item is deleted, the data is retained for an additional 14 days in a soft deleted state. During this period, the deletion can be undone by an administrator, providing a critical safety net against ransomware attacks that target backup data. That concludes our 30-question deep dive into the AZ-801, Configuring Windows Server Hybrid Advanced Services exam. These topics, from security hardening to high availability and disaster recovery, are the pillars of a successful hybrid cloud strategy. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more Microsoft certification content. For the full premium practice exam and expert-led training, check out the link in the description below.